Hello, in this video I am going to show how to deal with derivation 3.7. Okay, so we'll start by showing the conclusion. The conclusion is a conditional, so we'll assume the consequent. Since we're trying to show a conditional, well actually we assume the antecedent. Now we're going to show the consequent. What we're trying to show now is a disjunction, so we'll make an indirect assumption and immediately apply De Morgan's. Let's go ahead and split that off. Split off the P. And split off the, that. Then we can apply Qn to this. And there's a version of Qn, there's 203 and 204 are the ones you really have to do, but then we also have 205 and 206, and they will let, I think it's 205 and 206, and they will let us eliminate those double negations. So we're going to do that because that makes us easier to work with. Okay. So, and it's going to turn out it's going to be handy to do a double negation elimination here as well. Okay, so we have this sum x fx. If we look up at the premises, we can put them in. Now we can see that this first premise is just a conditional whose antecedent is p, so let's go ahead and apply modus ponens there. Premise 2 is a conjunction. So we can split it up, and in fact, to make it a little bit easier, to keep the derivation a little bit cleaner, let's do that. Okay, so at this point, we now have the initial strategy would have us sort of EI and UI, but that works only if the quantifiers are exposed and we can EI apply rules to them. In this case, we couldn't until we did all this. Now we can. So now we want to do our apply our rules. So we want to do EI first. So we'll do EI with line 6. That's the only existential quantifier, so we're done with EI. Now we go to the UI stage, so we instantiate each universal quantifier to each variable we get from existential instantiation. Well, we only got one variable I from UI, so we need to instantiate each of the universal quantifiers to I. Oh, I actually misspoke there, didn't I? We also need to instantiate the universal quantifiers to any names we have, and we do have the name A on line 2. So we're going to want to go ahead and instantiate these quantifiers to A. Okay. So now, this is more than we need. That's okay. It's a little bit messy, but it'll be okay. So we want to look and see if we can use any of these. So we immediately can see we can do modus ponens with 10 and 11 and 10 and 12. So 10, 12 modus ponens and 10, 11 modus ponens. Okay. Now if we look, can we do anything with GI? Well, we could get HI, so I suppose we can do that. 13, 17 modus ponens. And that kind of peters out. There's nothing more we can do with HI. So now we want to see, can we use any of these conditionals? FA then FA, FA then GA, GA then HA. Well, we have FA, so we can use it with 14, but that's a waste of time because that will just give us FA back, right? 14, 18 modus ponens is FA. Well, that's of no interest. But we can get GA, so we could go ahead and do that. So we could say, let's see, 15, where we have, 18 where we have FA and 15 modus ponens, and that gives us GA. And we could then use GA with line 16 to get HA, so 16, 20 modus ponens. Now what are we going to do? Well, we're going to use what's off the screen, not HA, so we're going to go ahead and repeat that, and that's an indirect, indirect derivation. Now, it turns out that a bunch of these are superfluous. We don't need this line, and we don't need that line, and we don't need that line. Oh, did I get rid of, yeah, and we don't care about that, and we don't care about that either. Okay, so if you remember, we did UI each of these to I, and then UI each of these to A. And that gave us a lot more than we needed. That's okay. If you get more than you need, there's no need to go back and delete it. I just wanted to do that to illustrate that there was excess stuff that we didn't need. And we can see we're still fine. Let's go ahead and cancel the whole thing. That's 3CD. And now we can check it, and it's fine. So when you're deciding to UI at the UI stage, the simplest thing to do without sort of thinking about it is just to take each universal quantifier, instantiate it to each variable and to each name. That will give you usually more than you need. So you can instead think, okay, let me sort of try to be intelligent about this and see, what's going to happen. So, you'd see, oh, okay, well, for example, with line 7, there's no point instantiating line 7 to A because it just gives me FA then FA, which you can get that anyway. And I have FI, so if I instantiate it to I can do modus ponens. So you could, and if you wanted to be more efficient about it, here's how you could sort of go about thinking about that. You'd say, okay, I need to start instantiating these three things. So I'd look at 7, I think, do I want to instantiate it to I? Do I want to instantiate it to A? I think, I want to instantiate it to I to use it with line 10. There's no reason to instantiate. However, this doesn't get me anything, so that's not interesting. I'm not going to do that. Okay, I've taken care of the quantifier in line 7. I've checked, do I want to instantiate it to I? Do I want to instantiate it to A? Now we go to line 8. We think, do I want to instantiate line this to I or to A? Well, you could use it. You can use it with both. If you instantiate it to I, you can use it with FI, and if you instantiate it to A, you can use it with FA. So I think, well, I could go ahead and do both, but if I'm trying to be efficient, let me think about what else I can do. Well, you might think, oh, I have HA, but I don't have HI. If you look here at line 9, well, that probably you're definitely going to want to instantiate that to A, and then do modus tollens with that. Okay, now this tells you, aha, what you want to instantiate line 8.2 is A, because it's going to give you if FA then GA, and that will give you a contradiction with 11 and 12. So then you can do UIA, 11, 13 modus ponens, and now we have our contradiction. So that's how, if you want to try to be efficient about it, you can say, look and think, okay, well, what's going to interact with my instantiations, and in particular, what's going to interact with what you already have. So what's going to interact with FI, and what's going to interact with not HA, and that can be helpful in terms of just trying to decide what to instantiate. So that's 3.7. I hope that was helpful.